Hi, I'm Dave Miller, Director of College Counseling at Stevenson School in Pebble Beach, California, and I'd like to welcome you to College Prep for You, covering the topic of college counseling and college preparation. Our intention is to let parents and students all over Monterey County and the Tri-County area know about all the sort of fun things, interesting things, and sometimes the discouraging things about applying to college and getting that exciting message that our seniors have gotten recently. This is the second year we've had this. Last year we had 13 programs. We're going to have this year, so we have 2 more after this. And we've tried to follow both the seniors and the juniors when it's been appropriate. One of our last shows we talked about what to do now that we've gotten in. One of our next shows is going to be about athletic recruiting and college admissions, and that'll have to do with the juniors. Then our final show is going to have to do with letting go and breaking away, basically a format for seniors to follow over the summer and breaking away from the families before they go to the college in the fall. This show is going to deal with the essay, the personal statement. Some of the things that we've covered so far this year, and we also touched on last year, in addition to the essay, we talked about financial aid, we talked about the UC system and the Cal States, how to get a good recommendation, we talked about visiting colleges, and we showed some of the things from our 2 college trips. We've talked about doing the interview, working with teachers. We had a college panel with 4 college admissions officers and a number of seniors, and they asked and answered lots of pertinent questions. So we've covered the gamut from A to Z in this whole process. Hopefully it'll inform you about the things you're going to be needing to know as a junior, and then next year in the fall as a senior. Today's program is on the essay, the personal statement, and it's so important that in my own job at Stevenson School, I do this twice. I do it, in fact, I'm going to be doing it Thursday for our students, mainly juniors, and some sophomores will be there, and then I will do it again in the fall for those students who didn't get a chance to see it in the spring, and there'll be seniors then and some juniors. It's the only show that I do twice, and because it's of such importance and it has such a big impact on the college selection process. Many things in this process students can't affect and change. Sometimes they can't increase their scores too much. Sometimes they can't improve the GPA a great deal, nor can you lower the GPA a great deal. Sometimes you can't control what people say about you. But one of the things you really can control and change a little bit is the essay, the amount of time you put into it, the selections you make, the choices you make. So this show is going to give you some tips on that, some do's and don'ts. I'll give you some examples of some good essays, and I'll warn you about some mistakes to avoid. In advance, I wanted to maybe apologize for talking so much at you. Usually I have a panel or a student here. We'll have a little interaction with some conversation. This format is such that I've got to get out lots of information. I want to read some examples to you. So please bear with me as we get started. I wanted to introduce sort of the raising the bar and setting the bar for a type of essay that you can shoot for. And it's one we've used in the past, and it's answering the question, are there any significant experiences you've had or accomplishments you've realized that help to define you as a person? And this is what a real person wrote several years ago, and this has been circulating on the internet and YouTube and different things, but it was done by a real person, so don't try to copy this. The answer: I'm a dynamic figure, often seen scaling walls and crushing ice. I've been known to remodel train stations on my lunch breaks, making them more efficient in the area of heat retention. I translate ethnic slurs for Cuban refugees. I write award-winning plays. I manage time efficiently. Occasionally, I tread water for 3 days in a row. I woo women with my sensuous and godlike trombone playing. I can pilot bicycles up severe inclines with unflagging speed, and I cook 30-minute brownies in just 20 minutes. I'm an expert in stucco, a veteran in love, and an outlaw in Peru. Using only a hoe and a large glass of water, I once single-handedly defended a small village in the Amazon basin from a horde of ferocious army ants. I played bluegrass cello. I was scouted by the Mets. I'm the subject of numerous documentaries. And when I'm bored, I build large suspension bridges in my yard. I enjoy urban hang gliding. On Wednesdays after school, I repair electrical appliances free of charge. I'm an abstract artist, a concrete analyst, and a ruthless bookie. Critics worldwide swoon over my original line of corduroy evening wear. I don't perspire. I'm a private citizen, yet I receive fan mail. Last summer, I toured New Jersey with a traveling centrifugal force demonstration. I bat 400. My deft floral arrangements have earned me fame in international botany circles. Children trust me. I can hurl tennis rackets at small moving objects with deadly accuracy. I once read Paradise Lost, Moby Dick, and David Copperfield in one day and still had time to refurbish an entire dining room that evening. I know the exact location of every food item in the supermarket. I performed several covert operations for the CIA, and I sleep once a week. When I do sleep, I sleep in a chair. While on vacation in Canada, I successfully negotiated with a group of terrorists who had seized a small bakery. The laws of physics do not apply to me. I balance, I weave, I dodge, I frolic, and my bills are all paid. On weekends, to let off steam, I participate in full contact origami. Years ago, I discovered the meaning of life, but forgot to write it down. I have made extraordinary 4-course meals using only a mouli and a toaster oven. I breed prize-winning clams. I've won bullfights in San Juan, cliff diving competitions in Sri Lanka, and spelling bees at the Kremlin. I have played Hamlet. I have performed open-heart surgery, and I have spoken with Elvis. But alas, I have not yet gone to college. So, what can we make of that? I am a dynamic figure. First of all, it portrays to the audience, to the reader, that this is a really clever person. He's a good writer, knows lots of words. He's been around the pike for a while. He's not been down the road. He's done lots of things. It's very compelling. And it's very creative, very original, and I don't know about you, but I would want to spend some time with this guy. I would want him in my classroom as a teacher. I'd want him as a peer. I'd want him in my club, my team. I'd like to be around this person. But that's also a perfect example, in addition to the creativity and the type of person, the type of thing you want to project, is you want to make yourself distinct, separate from other people. So this is a good learning essay for a variety of things that you want to have as your goals. In fact, that'll get us to our PowerPoint. I want to get started here. What are the goals of this personal essay and the personal statement? First of all, you want to talk about and portray to the colleges who you are. And you've got to separate yourself from other people, because these readers are going to be reading very, very similar essays. So you need to become very distinct and separate yourself from the crowd, from the other people, as well as showing your academic skills. And this guy showed lots of academic skills in terms of his history, his knowledge of politics, his ability to write, those sorts of things. So basically, we want to have this great feeling that the reader, the admissions officer, wants to admit you and have you as part of his team. Now, getting into the mind of this admissions officer, he's got to read maybe, or she's got to read maybe 1,500 essays overall, 50 complete applications, and in just a little bit of time, 15 a day, 1,500 or more during the season. And so that means he's only going to spend maybe 3 minutes with yours. So how are you going to get into the mind of a 20-something? These guys are in their mid-20s, they're not paid very well, and they're doing lots of things. So it's a very important task you have. Okay, what role does the essay play in this whole process here? First of all, it can influence the admissions office, admissions decision greatly. If all things are equal, like if all the applicants have the same numbers, the same scores, the same compelling personal attributes, and there's one thing that separates them, usually the admission's going to go to that one person who's got something different. And many times it can be the essay. Another thing that they like to see, that the reason you're doing this, is to show your depth, the depth of understanding on certain issues, whether they're political issues, economic issues, historical, and so forth. Another important element, this breathes life into your application. The application basically can be, just a boring set of data, documents, and materials, but this is the one chance for your application to come to life, and you can jump off of that page and become a real person. What else? It can be the tiebreaker. All things else, and all things equal, and you've got the little bit better essay that can move you ahead of the pack. You can jump over others. Basically, what it should do is validate the rest of the application. Like if you're a clever person, you're very creative, you're a great writer, we'd better see that in other portions of your application, in what the teachers say about you, or what the counselor says about you, your other smart, short written documents. So you need to have an overall goal, a theme, something that permeates the writing, and I think we'll give a couple of examples of that subsequently here. So you want to separate yourself from the pack. You want to be a little bit different than other people. You want to make your reader your advocate. In fact, that's what they do. They stand up in front of a committee and they read out your attributes, and they sometimes will read portions of your essay. But you want to separate yourself, stick out in that person's mind so he can be on your side and jump you over 5 or 6 other people that he's advocating for as well. Okay, I've said before, it's one of the few things you can control, but you can't do it just the night before. You've got to spend a great deal of time on this. Okay, what all are they looking for in a candidate? We've talked about this in some prior shows, but basically they want students who can handle the academic workload. And you prove that with other portions of the application. You might reinforce that with this essay, but you're basically going to show that in your other data. Okay, they want to see that you're going to contribute to the life of the party, the life of the school. They want to have a strong community member. And judging from the first essay that I read to you, this guy's done lots of things, or at least he knows lots of things, and he's going to bring a certain energy and experience and breadth to the table in everything he does. They will also want you to demonstrate that you've taken some time to learn about their school. A recollection I have is this one young man, in fact, he graduated from Penn now several years ago. He was with us about 10 years ago, and he applied to Penn because of their robotics program. And he talked about that in his essay. And in fact, when I visited him there, he took me to the robotics lab where he was working. So he went that extra mile to learn about Penn. He demonstrated that in his essay, and I think that served him well. What else do they look for? That you can show them, demonstrate that you're going to be happy, productive, and a good citizen. If you can show that in your essays and in your track record, your history at the school where you are now, it's a pretty good indication that's going to occur later. Okay, what else do they want? They want a student who can be serious about pursuing a college level education, although there's a place to be sort of cute and maybe not smart aleck, but a little humorous, a little coy. They want to see that you have a desire to go to their school, whether that be Davis or Davidson or UCLA. They want to see that you can think clearly, logically, as well as abstractly. Okay, the bottom line about the topics. Because that's going to be one of the ways you really set the pace here. Make sure that your topic always reflects something on you. If you're a big athlete, a jock, that's what you're hanging your hat on. You probably should be choosing a topic that has something to do with athletics. Make sure that the essay reinforces the rest of the application and that your essay resonates with what your recommenders say about you. The 2 teachers, maybe a coach, maybe a mentor. So it all should fit together in one big piece. Okay, question here, how many essays should one write? I think 2 is plenty. Some people write 3, 4, and 5, especially these students who are applying to a variety of schools, 20, 25 schools. But if you're doing a normal 9, 10 schools, 2 should serve you. Write one very good one and then adapt, recycle, modify it, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second, but 2 is pretty good. How long should they be? Well, they're going to dictate that to you. They're going to explain how long they want it. The schools will tell you and indicate it in the application. Never ever write less than a page because you really can't accomplish much in less than a page. And if you go longer than 2 pages, it should be really, really compelling and enticing. They're reading these things in just a few minutes, and they better be entertained. You better grab them by the shirt. I'm going to give you some mixed advice here. Normally, I would say answer the question. They're going to give you something that they want to see that you're going to write about. They want to compare you to other people, so they have to have a standardized essay. So normally you should answer the question, follow the directions, do what they want. But the caveat here is that if you have this really burning desire to write something that you want and you don't have the opportunity to write that, I'd go ahead with your gut and I would write what you want to write, but it better be good. It better be compelling. It better make them forget about the fact that you're not on topic here. So answer the question. One answer may not work for all of your applications, but in most cases it will, and I'll show you how here. Read it, look it over, and reread once you finish it, and then have some other people look at it as well, and ask yourself, am I answering the question here? It's a good thing to follow when you're doing essay type exams, just in your regular classes as well. Okay, some important things that you need to do. Choose the topic carefully. That's going to say something about you and about your creativity and your insight into yourself. Choose your critics carefully. You don't want to give this to just anybody and everybody, all your friends and parents and teachers. Too many cooks will spoil the broth, so just do this in a very circumspect manner. Use an authentic voice. That means you are writing like you are, and you should have a 16 or 17-year-old voice, and you shouldn't be sounding like your parents or your teacher, and you shouldn't use these words that are not familiar to you. Your tone should be informal, familiar. You're a kid. You're not addressing the assembly of an august body of politicians or the Nobel Prize group here. So you're talking amongst friends. And remember who the audience is. Usually it's one or two people in the admissions office, and they're in their 20s, and they've done this for a long time. So think of who your reader's going to be. It's also a really good idea to tell a story and use some dialogue. I'm going to show you some examples later. Just like any good writing, it's compelling when you get quotes in there, you've got lots of details. Just follow the things you learn in an English class, maybe a creative writing class, to spruce this up and make it very interesting. Big advice that all our seniors would tell you would be to start early, budget your time. You don't want to be writing these things the day before they're due. And then if you can't get going, just do a really quick rough draft, push that pencil across the paper, get some skeleton out there to hang the rest of the meat on, and get it done. Okay, some other things here. Be very specific. The broader you are, the more general, the wider, the less compelling you can be. And it doesn't show really good tight writing. So be specific, be clear, be focused. Again, be distinctive so that your essay is unlike any others. Try to be enthusiastic, but don't be gushing. Try to be reasonable. Include powerful experiences. Now, the problem here is that most people, by the time they're 16 or 17, have not had powerful experiences. You know, we're asking you to do something you can't do. To do something that nobody else has done, to write about something that somebody else can't write about. And, you know, you're sort of in debt there. You can't make up what you haven't done. So if something interesting, important has happened to you, that's what you want to go with your essay. Obviously, you want to polish this, proofread it, come back to it several times. Put it down and let it simmer, just like you know, a good cook does with spaghetti or a favorite meal. You know, return, rewrite, just like Ernest Hemingway did with his work. He rewrote it and worked it until he got it right. Okay, some things to avoid here. You don't want to write for them. Even though I said be aware of your audience, you're writing for yourself to really show who you are as a person. So keep in mind your audience, but you're not trying to kiss up to them and write what they expect you to write. I would not exaggerate about yourself or exaggerate with a false self. That first exaggerated essay I gave to you, obviously a guy was having some fun with showing how much he knew, and he, you know, he was probably lacked some confidence. He's probably humble, but he went in the opposite direction and took a big chance with this exaggeration, but it was clearly put on. That's a problem with exaggerating and the false self. You can't tell the difference between being put on and being serious. Good thing to avoid are these $50 words, and I'm going to give you an example of that here in a second. If they're not words you use with your friends, I would avoid them. As a good English teacher, I would advise you not to neglect the technical aspects. In virtually every case, except for perhaps the UC system, that cares a little bit more about content than they do the process. Your writing is going to be looked at on both sides, the substance as well as the style and the content. Be careful not to ramble on. Remember, you've got to be concise. You've got a certain time limit here. Take a little chance. If you can entertain, if you can tell a joke, if you can be a little risky, you might want to try it. This writing on trite topics, and I'll give you a list of those, but you want to try to avoid those like the plague, because everybody writes about these things. Okay, here's an example of what I've talked about in terms of don't write with a thesaurus. And I took this from a book of college essays, what to do and what not to do. But this was really a person submitted this thing. And this is just a paragraph from this terrible essay. To recapitulate myself, I'm an aesthetic and erudition-seeking personage. My superlative design and effervescence is to prospect divergent areas of the orb and to conceive these divergent cultures through the rumination of the lives of indisputable people. Well, I don't know what the guy's saying. I have an idea, but he certainly doesn't do it well, and that's just a gigantic turnoff. People don't speak that way. Another example of blah, blah, blah is this piece of work. My own work in the construction, deconstruction, and reconstruction of the poetic has blossomed from a fleeting fascination with rhythm and rhyme to an intense desire to hone my sense of utterance, so that it is neither myopic in its treatment of the sensual predications of modern existence, nor ignorant to the monster of nativism. Well, lots of near learning there, not a great deal of impressive writing. Okay, so what types of essays are you going to see? What are some examples? The autobiographical essay, you're going to write something about yourself, some aspect of your life, if there's something to write about, if there's something that's compelling and different. A social, political theme issue, not too many people do that. You know, some of the, I think more the brighter kids, the more intellectual kids, kids who found themselves, they think they want to be a politician. They've got a real strong right-wing position or left-wing position, or maybe they're libertarian. But again, this should be backed up with some substance, some evidence, and not be amateurish. If you have a true intellectual interest in some aspect of science, or even mathematics, or English, or poetry, probably not a bad idea to show that off, strut your stuff. Micro moments, everybody has those. Micro moment is not working at the soup kitchen. It is the afternoon you were peeling onions and you were helping an 80-year-old man that you'd never met before, and he gave you this really interesting little slice of life. And so that's a micro moment you might deal with. Okay, a couple of rules to follow. Choose a topic that only you can write about. In other words, if somebody else can write about it, choose something else. So everybody can write about sports, everybody can write about the time they had the lead in the play. Well, most people can. The wilderness program, those sorts of things. Other people do them, so you want to try to avoid those. If you've had a specific academic prep or scholarly experience, maybe a Westinghouse competition, science fair, history day, you might want to outline that, mathematics. Sometimes people will write in conjunction with an English class assignment. They'll talk about people, literary characters, an historical figure. So you can maybe kill two birds with one stone. You can get an English assignment out of the way. You can also get one of your essays done. And you can talk about how those people influence you. Even though they're dead, maybe they lived 300 years ago, you can draw a parallel and show how maybe Thomas Jefferson influenced you, how Thomas Paine did. Another good topic, demonstrate your intellectual curiosity. And I'm going to read one later if I get to it at the end where it's mainly about intellectual curiosity and taking mind trips. Tell a story that illustrates your character. Hopefully it's a good aspect of your character that shows that you've got integrity, you're responsible, you're a mentor, you're a leader. Everybody can't do this, but if you can, especially for the UC system, explain what you've had to overcome to achieve. It could be a family situation, something to do with your parents, maybe an illness, something like that, and that can be very helpful. A couple other topics here to consider. Your specific interest in the college's program. I mentioned the young man who was interested in robotics at Penn. That helped him out a great deal. If you know something about Cal Poly, all the different colleges they have there, and you hone in on one college, let them know that you know all about them. Caring experiences, and that happens to be with the topic of one of my favorite stories. In fact, it was a young lady I had on the program last year, how she took care of her daughter, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Humanitarian concerns, what you do to really help people. It's got to be, can't be false, it's got to be real evidence that you do this. Your vision, whether that's a vision for yourself for the future, for your friends, for the country. You want to try to walk very cautiously here. You don't want to get stuck in this thing where you're talking about your vision for world peace, and you don't want to come across as a Miss America beauty pageant person, because those events can sometimes be disastrous. If you've been a real leader, on a team or at your school or with school leadership, it's a pretty good idea to demonstrate that. Tell a story, tell an anecdote, use some quotes here to demonstrate what you're really doing. Because a lot of people don't really do that, they talk about it, but if you have a real story to exemplify that, to support it, it's a good idea. If you've taken risks, you've gone away to school, to a boarding school, you've gone away from your parents in the summertime, you've gone away from the crowd, and it was very difficult for you to do something different from the crowd, that's sort of a risk. If you've gone skydiving, things like that, not a bad thing to talk about. This is a little dangerous one here, ethical dilemmas you faced, depending upon how you've decided about those ethical dilemmas. Obviously you want to be on the side of being positive rather than negative here. But if you can flesh that out, that's going to be a harbinger of how you will be on the campus, and that's what they're looking for with these essays. Okay, some assigned topics you might come across, your favorite book, your ideal future roommate. Stanford does something like that. They ask you to write a little note to your roommate. Meeting an historical figure, that's an assignment I've often given to my English classes. At the end of the year, I ask them to go back and survey some of the people that we've talked about through the year, and then meet them for an evening for dinner, or maybe take 2 of them out on a date, or a variety of things like that. You could talk about the most influential person in your life, and that sometimes co-joins with the most influential event in your life, and you can twist those 2 different topics and use them as you need them. And basically it can be the same topic. So that's you get double bang for the buck for doing those. I mentioned your academic and intellectual interests, and then sometimes people will say, give us page 217 of your autobiography, and that obviously is pretty tough to do. You maybe haven't lived for 217 pages, so that's going to beg some creativity on your part. Okay, taking a look at the autobiographical essay, some things you might want to include here. Something about your ancestors, your heritage, your parents, and if you have an advantage, if you come from maybe your first generation, your parents lived overseas, or if you can trace your ancestors back, or you've got a distinct ethnic group that does specific cultural things and has artifacts, then I would tie into that and use that. Any interesting hobbies, favorite activities? Several of our kids have done black belt and brown belt types of things. People have made their own movies. Some people do these rowing with the Polynesian groups in Marina. So something that's just a little offbeat, a little different, you can tie that into your essay and show how you're a little bit different, how you're going to bring something to the table once you're on the campus. Jobs that were helpful in your development, they can be mundane things like working at McDonald's or volunteering or just cleaning up. It's basically you're trying to tell in this essay how you changed, how you developed, what it says about you. Why going to college is important to you, and again, you have to sort of avoid the trite answer and try to make yourself a little different, a little separate. What you hope to gain from the experience. Maybe you might want to talk about some careers that are especially tied into the curriculum at the school. Why you want to go to that specific college, maybe what you liked about high school and why you liked it. My favorites, shopping with my little brother, and this was like a little micro moment, and it had to do with a student I had 2 years ago, and she was a great athlete. She could have written about lots of things, but she wrote about taking her younger brother, who was a 9th grader at the time, out shopping to get ready for the sophomore year, and it placed herself second, placed all the focus on the brother. But what we do is we learn all these wonderful characteristics of this young lady. She's now a sophomore at Berkeley, and I think it's a neat little thing that she did, and it told lots of stuff about her. Another good one that I liked, in fact, this is the daughter of one of our faculty at school. She was on this wilderness trip, and she hurt her head on the wilderness trip, and she had to be helicoptered out, and she had a really serious injury. It was a while that she took to recover from it. But again, it's not the typical thing. Everybody obviously can't write about that injury. They can all write about the wilderness trip. But what she did with it, how she reacted to that injury, spoke volumes about her. And she's now an emergency room nurse, and certainly she tied that experience into her career and really meant what she was talking about when that was an important part of her life. I had 3 students, two sisters and a brother, all grow up in El Salvador, and I helped them go to college, writing their essays and so forth, and they each independently chose to write about what it was like growing up in El Salvador, where they had to literally dodge gunfire going to their classes in elementary school and even middle school. Very compelling essays, each was a little different than the other, but again, a topic that virtually no one else could write about. The soup kitchen you want to avoid, but I had this one great writer, but maybe the smartest kid I ever had. He graduated from Yale and he's working in New York City now as a writer. But he talked about a micro moment working with this older guy in a soup kitchen in Salinas, and the thing just virtually jumped off the paper. It was just a wonderful essay. Another one of my favorites is a young man about 10 or 15 years ago had this health problem, and he wrote about how it affected his life in school, how it affected his friends, how his friends helped him through it, what the experiences were in the hospital, how he had to make up for these deficiencies both in athletics and the academics. So he was talking about his friends, he was talking about his illness, but he really was revealing lots of stuff about himself. And lo and behold, he turned that into a career in medicine, and he's a doctor now, and he's a excellent doctor, and he's driven by the fact that he didn't want those negative things to happen to him, that he would do to other people as a doctor, that he had happened to him when he was going through all of his diagnoses. So that was a favorite one of mine. And then another one I really liked, and in fact I'll read it to you at the end, it's about fire walking with the parents. I'll hold that off to the end. It's really funny and instructive. And then this another one here, Finding a Way Home with Dad. I want to read that one too if I can, so I don't want to spoil the effect here. And the last one is another young lady about 10 years or so ago. She talked about living for another person. Her twin did not make it in childbirth, and she wrote the essay about reflecting on what her life was like without, not being, or being a twin, but not having a twin with her. And so when she would have these problems, she would go down to the beach and walk the beach, and she would talk to the twin about, and she also, her life was she was an alpha person, and like the rat on the wheel, just doing all sorts of things. And she sort of justified who she was, didn't justify, she explained who she was by essentially living a life for two people. So it explained her, who she was, she showed that she was a good writer, and it showed her inner self, and it showed that, she gave an example of being a person that you would want to have on your college campus, somebody who's very thoughtful. So those are my favorites. This little, hope you can see this here. You better get to work on this. Here's your admission essay question from the Police Academy. Where were you on July 8th between the hours of 9 and 11 p.m.? So this, a lot of times these things can be onerous, they can be frustrating, but you have to look at the bright side and see some humor in this whole process. Okay, some things you don't want to do, things you want to avoid, internet essays, and we've had kids every year who've, instead of writing the essay, they'll get on the site, and for $50 you can get one, and basically that's the end of the line. If they find out that it's not yours, you're just basically not getting into the school. In most cases you want to avoid death essays because lots of people write about them, and what can you say that's new or different or better than what somebody else has said? Even though it's compelling, and I know it's been a big part in your life, you should consider this very cautiously. Again, the soup kitchen stories you want to avoid if you can. The wilderness experiences, a lot of people have had those, the outward bound things. It's transformational, I know, but again, what can you say that other people haven't said better? I know many people have been on championship teams, you won the big game, they cheered you through the marketplace, all those sorts of things. Try to avoid those unless you can see something absolutely different. If you spent your summer in Europe, in Africa, you tend to come off as being maybe a spoiled little rich kid unless you earn the money yourself for going to Africa. So be cautious with that. Building in churches, Mexico, how many thousands of essays have been done on that? In fact, Mexico probably is wall-to-wall churches these days because of all the work down there. So unless it's very distinct, very different, you went down maybe with a parent, with the flying doctors, and got to do some procedures or whatever, I would maybe stay away from those sorts of topics. A couple other things to avoid, sex. Don't avoid sex, but avoid writing about it, especially if you're a teenager. It's pretty tough to do that well. If you've been involved in a crime, misdemeanor, school violations, it's pretty tough to put that in the right manner, in the right tone, with the right little twist to come across without damaging yourself here. Obviously getting high, using drugs, even though teenagers do those sorts of things, I don't think you want to be writing about them. Bad grades, maybe it's best leave them alone. The occasional explanation of one bad grade or something, or how it's transformed you, you might take a risk with that, but I would avoid that. Why University X is the perfect place? Especially avoid that if you forget to change the name of the university when you send it to different places. The dysfunction of your family, mental health problems, those things are probably best left in the closet. Things that reveal too much weakness on your side is schools are getting very, very skittish about admitting students like they're going to bring problems to them. And then your plan for world peace is a little too aggressive. Top 10 titles, and I want to give the credit to Dave Letterman for these. I didn't make these up. Number 10, Why I'm Going to Get So Much Attention in College. Number 9, Mad Dog, My Most Unforgettable Cellmate. 8, D's equal A's, my high school's very complex grading system. Number 7, Gross Things I Did to Food when I worked at McDonald's. Probably a lot of truth to that one. Number 6, I hired some smart kid to write this essay. Number 5, Why the admissions director loves his car and wouldn't want anything bad to happen to it. Number 4, a few ideas on what to do with all those annoying elderly people. Number 3, Faith Hill. She's a good singer, but is she really a diva? 2, instead of an essay, here's a photocopy of my butt. That's pretty poor taste there. You don't want to do something like that. And when you're in college then, hello NBA, number 1. And of course, David Letterman gets credit for that. Okay, so the writing counts. Humor can work sometimes, but writing counts. Good, clear, organized writing is what you need to come up with. Proper grammar, always follow the rules if you can. Diction, your choice of words are important. Syntax, the order of the words, how you pick them, how you put them in order. And then a little change of pace here that has to do with writing. Oh, I was reading some students' admissions essays and I didn't see the run-on sentences coming. This guy obviously got his neck jerked back with run-on sentences, so you want to avoid those. Okay, the process of writing is very important. Choose a topic you care about, keep a journal, brainstorm some topics. If you can't think of some things, maybe get with your parents, and they'll help you with some ideas, or some friends, an English teacher. Just jot down 5 words that describe you. Ambitious, athletic, energetic, quiet, thoughtful, reflective, and that'll give you some directions to go to. 5 topics you could write about. At least get something down and then go through the process of eliminating them. Share some things with people and get started. Okay, what you'll need to do when you do write, get your point across quickly. Remember, you only have a couple of pages. Structure your essays logically. Have one point lead to the next. Have a transition. Make sure they keep on reading. If you're boring them or you're losing them, you're losing the game. And this is another little cartoon, what to avoid. I know it works on late night infomercials, but I still wouldn't separate paragraphs in my essays with, but wait, that's not all. And act now, and I'll include this impressive list of high school trophies. Plenty of places for that elsewhere in the application. Okay, keep them reading. Introduction needs to grab people's attention, basic writing principles, tell people what's going to come, detail the purpose, support the purpose with connected ideas, use examples, show, don't tell. Use strong transitions, show, don't tell, the secret to writing. Okay, first lines are very, very important. I'm going to give you some good ones and some bad ones. Okay, these are examples of the worst possible lines, first lines you could come up with. The 4th runner-up is, when I told my friends I was applying to What's the Matter You, they were like, no way. And I was like, yeah, way. And they were like, way cool. And I was like, you know, you don't want to talk like a valley girl. My mother's probably already written to you spreading her lies. Obviously, we're going negative there. I'm a vegetarian, and all I demand is that any vegetable I eat be pureed or finely chopped so it in no way resembles its original self before it was murdered. I'm sure your dining hall, blah, blah, blah. Little pompous. First runner-up, 4 years of fees at your institution comes to about 140 grand. You just bill my father, keep half, and mail me half the money. He'll never find out. Trust me, this deal is sweet. A little flip. And the winner is My Plan for College, SCHOLAR. Little acronym. Start with the basics, comprehensive approach, and so forth. You know, you just don't want to be this transparent. Be a little more sophisticated. A couple of honorable mentions here to look at as instructional about what not to do. Most people don't realize that there actually is more than one way to skin a cat. Little trite. First off, coach said there wasn't going to be no writing. Everybody's got to do some writing in these applications. If I've accidentally sealed this envelope with cash inside, well, finders keepers. Another honorable mention. The other day, my probation officer said, please let me into your school. I want to go to Harvard because, and then you write Yale on it. My daughter did that for 2 different schools, unfortunately. Pee Wee Herman is one of our nation's greatest heroes. Well, not really. I think applying to college is like sitting on a big toilet. Somebody actually wrote that. On the other hand, and I just got these the other day, somebody sent them to me. They were from this year's applications by students who were admitted to Stanford, so you might want to pay attention to these. I call these intriguing first lines. And it made me want to read more, made me want to meet these kids. Like many mathematicians, I live in an irrational world. I feel that my life is defined by a certain amount of irrationalities that bloom too frequently, such as my brief foray in front of 400 people without my pants. So a mathematician that's a little funny here, I want to meet this guy. I almost didn't live through September 11th, 2001. We all could write about that. That'd be an interesting, I'm just curious to see what this guy did. The spaghetti burbled and sloshed around the pan, and as I stirred it, the noise it gave off began to sound increasingly like bodily functions. Again, where's this guy going? A little more serious, cancer tried to defeat me, and it failed. Not too many people can write about that. I have old hands, very thoughtful, reflective. Love to see what else is in that essay. I was paralyzed from the waist down. I would try to move my leg or even shift an ankle, but I never got a response. This was the first time thoughts of death ever crossed my mind. Very intriguing. I've been surfing Lake Michigan since I was 3 years old. Again, who surfs when they're 3, and how do you surf on Lake Michigan? And the last one here, I changed my name each time I place an order at Starbucks. We've all done that, but why would this guy be changing his name? Another little cartoon here. Your essay looks fine. I just don't think you're merry enough. Robin Hood and the Merry Band of Men there in Sherwood Forest. Okay, let me zip through the tone a little bit. I want to get on to some other things. Be honest, tell your story in your own voice, write about something you're familiar with, personalize it, use anecdotes. Don't use words you're not familiar with. Write about the specific, concrete, rather than abstract. Type it, proofread it, have somebody look it over. Does it sound like you? Is it okay? Don't be too silly, too cute, or outrageous unless you really can do a good job with this. Avoid a laundry list of accomplishments. You got to be doing that elsewhere. There's a resume place elsewhere. If you can be humorous, try it, but again, not too many people can pull that off. Messages about yourself, your self-esteem are very subtle and they can come through, so be very careful what you're portraying about yourself. Avoid anything negative or an extreme tone at either end. That might show that you're either too confident or underconfident. You're desperate, suicidal. Obviously, you want to avoid those things. Okay, what makes a good essay then? The hook or grabber, a closing, organization, it reveals you, it stays with the reader, and it shows it doesn't tell. Basically, it's convincing. What else? It reinforces and validates the application. It's precise, it's concise, it has a voice, and it's timely. So you need to use your time wisely when you do this. Write a rough draft, set it aside, let it simmer between revisions, complete it, wait a day, come back to it, maybe have somebody look at it, make a final edit. Okay, a couple ways you can maybe save some time, a couple little tricks here. If you don't have enough time or space to write, decrease the margins, decrease the line spacing a little bit, decrease the font, even cut and paste rather than using electronic submission. That allows you to use up some more of the space, the margins, even you can blot out some of the instructions. Recycle the same essay over and over again. Lots of ways you can do that. Now, the UC system, a little bit different. They've got about 3 or 4 essays, and let me give you some advice on them. The content's not quite as important as the grammar and some other things. Sometimes they don't even read it in the first rounds. They'll let you go by the first 2 rounds, and then but when they do read it, it can really make you or break you because they put a great deal of emphasis on the essay. Now they have 2 short essays rather than 1 big long one, so you have to decide how you're going to spend your 1,000 words total. Another thing you need to be aware of with the UC essay is that they have an essay that I call the obstacle or victimization essay. They like to know what you did to overcome things that other people did not, were not able to do. The big thing they like to see is your life changes, whether you've moved or you've grown differently psychologically, physically, in terms of your integrity, character, and so forth. So the UC essay is terribly important for them. Okay, a couple of things you need to do also is, to get ready for this, is read some classic essays. You can mimic some good ones by reading some good ones. Thomas Friedman's a writer from the New York Times. He wrote a thing called Eastern Middle School, reflecting his time there. Of Studies is a classic by Francis Bacon. The Letter from the Birmingham Jail, often cited and quoted by Martin Luther King when he was there for civil rights issues. Mother Tongue by Amy Tan, Haitian writer. I read a couple of her books. She's very popular in San Francisco. The Solace of Open Spaces, my wife would like me to mention this. It has to do with being out in the wild, in the open, and science. Then The Lives of a Cell. She'd really appreciate that one by Lewis Thomas. I wanted to read a couple of two essays here, and I think I've got enough time to do these. The ones that I really like. And this was a young man in my class 2 years ago, and he went to, it's very instructive, and he does lots of things I've talked about here. It's just a wonderful, funny piece. It's instructive. It got him admitted, reflects who he was, and it showed growth and change, all the things I just mentioned. He came to us his junior year. He was in my English class. He became, he was a really funny guy. He became an actor, and he wrote this essay to Duke, and then he transferred to Columbia, graduating now, is making films, but this is just a wonderful, funny piece here. And it really bespeaks the process and reflects on him. I had to break the laws of physics before I truly believed in myself. Opening first line is a great one. I was 11 years old, and for years my mother had been teaching seminars on the ancient ritual of fire walking. I always felt a certain embarrassment when I saw posted flyers of her striding over the coal bed. When my friends mentioned it, I feigned deafness and switched to a sensible topic like Nintendo or paintball. I had frequently overheard the ceremony praised by past participants, but this hardly eased my discomfort. Intimidation by the unknown additionally kept me aloof, yet a tinge of curiosity smoldered. Then one evening, my outlook changed. I peered out my upstairs window and watched the first plumes of white smoke twist up into the sky, and the enormous flame that contorted to and fro like a lion shackled to the earth. The doorbell was insistently ringing as processions of nervous, tofu-eating beings entered our house, readying for their enlightenment. I had called all my friends in an attempt to escape, but everyone was busy. I fled to the TV room, to the TV in the family room, my usual firewalk sanctuary, and found the cable was cut. The workshop was about to begin, so I heatedly raced to find my dad. With the plentiful egocentricity of a dissatisfied preteen, I demanded that he arrange for some alternative entertainment, and quickly. "Why don't you just come watch the workshop?" he asked. "It's not as if you have to walk." My options seemed limited, and I realized that watching the tofu eaters roast their feet could prove quite amusing. My vehemence wilted, and I eventually gave in. Okay, fine. I walked to the living room, joined the circle of eager learners, and waited for my teacher. Several self-empowering anecdotes and mind-over-matter demonstrations later, we walked to our meadow, where the vigorous flame had burned down to a golden mat of glowing embers. We encircled the coals, and I reluctantly gripped the warm adult hands. Hippie cooties, I thought. A searing wave of heat tongued my face, and my heart began to pound anxiously as the notion of walking became more real. I envisioned myself stepping through the 1200-degree fire, and a cold sweat trickled down my brow. My mind turned to my mother's earlier words. "When we arrive at the fire, you may be afraid." Afraid? Not me. Why be afraid when there's no chance I would attempt a firewalk? "The coals are hot, but they don't have to burn you." Right, Mom. Just like cleaning my room can be fun. "Listen to your inner voice. Pay attention to your feelings." I am listening. I hear myself laughing at these fools. In fact, I even feel a bit of sympathy for them. "If you have a strong desire, nothing is impossible." I was as skeptical of those words as I was of much of the motherly counsel she had given me throughout the years. I planted my feet in the harmless dirt, waiting for the first of these gullible seekers to walk, and wondering how an ambulance would manage to reach our meadow. A sudden thumping of drums yanked me back into the moment. I was standing at the head of the fire, the place where anyone foolish enough to try would have to start, the launching pad to the burn unit. I was there just for the ringside view, and the only thing I had a strong desire for was some marshmallows to roast, and perhaps a video camera. And then it happened. 2 or 3 people stepped in front of me. At first one, then another, and a third effortlessly treaded across the red-hot coals, their elated faces beaming. Then my father, who had been standing beside me, strode across as well, completely unharmed. A change began to occur. I thought, if they can do it, if he can do it and not get burned, maybe it wasn't impossible. The words of my mother resonated in my head as I contemplated what lay before me. My sweat-soaked forehead dried, and my racing heart gradually slowed, synchronizing with the steady drum beat. I inhaled. The warmth of the fire's breath soothed my body, and I gazed into the glowing pit. My mind whirled with its power and the possibilities before me. I embraced the energy of the fire and let my body absorb it. My eyes closed, and I exhaled. I stood before the pit, totally alert, yet relaxed. I opened my eyes and took a step. In an instant, my feet were pressed against 1200-degree coals, and after 3 more strides, I felt the moist, cool dirt tingling my toes. Exhilaration. I had marched through the burning coals and emerged without the tiniest scratch. I had trusted myself, gazed inward, and found a new self-confidence. I had achieved what seemed impossible. A smile of revelation covered my face, and I turned my head, looking for the place where I stood before walking. Happily, it had vanished. So I became a teenager, and the memory of the firewalk faded. The enormous contrast between socially acceptable teen values and those of such practices was stark. I was an adolescent with dozens of fingers pointing me in scores of directions, none of which was towards the fire. A new kind of social life consumed me, and my passion for academics waned. For a while, I thought I had found something real, I'd learned how to be funny, and the laughter I drew was enough for me to lose interest in all else. I thought that the joy I extracted from socializing could indefinitely sustain me. Gradually, I noticed more cool kids with the same conviction continuing their lives in the small town they swore they would one day abandon. Their aspirations had floated to the ground like a flake of ash, and mine were following right behind. My vigorous self-belief had burned down to a stagnant complacency, and my potential was buried deep within it. Yet, in the recesses of my mind, the power of the firewalk pulsed strongly. I began to restlessly scour for my former self-confidence, for the assurance that I could complete any task I put my mind to. The task at hand was unearthing my potential. The solution was radical. My parents and I mutually decided to move me to a secondary school that would offer me the academic challenges I once relished, and the opportunity to succeed at new levels. I enrolled at Stevenson my junior year and have not looked back. I look inward and now know that my life is fruitful. I believed in myself and achieved the seemingly impossible. It is this belief that allows me to chuckle when I study at 2 in the morning. It consoles and encourages me. It carries me through the stress, tedium, and disappointment. It is this belief that unveils new potential in me each and every day. It is the combined faith of my mentors, peers, and myself. My future will be the positive consequences of my self-trust and my experience. Focused attention will allow me to complete any task. It led me across red-hot coals unscathed. It has taught me the things that seem impossible may not be. I know that if I can walk on fire, I can do anything. Isn't that a wonderful story? Let's take a look at that. Why is that a good story? Well, one, I got a handwritten note from the young lady at Duke who read this story, and I still have that somewhere. 2, it showed some humor, it showed some self-deprecation, it showed a wonderful vocabulary, it showed a neat ability to create and move from one part of life to the next part of life. And then the key thing is he's putting that he comes into play at college and explaining his college thing. So he does lots of wonderful things for the reader and for the college, and I think it's just an exquisite essay, and I share that with all of my students. I want to read one more here, and this is another one that's by one of our students here. Let me just summarize for you. It's called The Lost Game. It was written by Stephanie Stewart, a young lady I had in my junior English class. And she was very, very bright, socially a little bit backwards. It took her a while to find out about herself. But she wrote this essay and didn't even talk about it. I was her college counselor. I didn't see the essay. But we came across this in a bookstore years after that. In fact, she's in a PhD program, finished Harvard, PhD program at Berkeley in biology, I believe. But we found this in a bookstore of 50 great essays by Harvard students, and hers was picked, and she didn't tell anybody. I'm not even sure her parents know about it, but it's called The Lost Game. And basically, she talks about a game she played with her father when she was growing up. Her dad would take her out on errands with him, and then he would act like he was lost and ask her to bring him home. Well, she engaged that, and she brought them home by trying different things. And she liked the idea of being lost and also finding her way home on her own and also trying new things. Later, she did the same thing with her younger brother when she was out driving him home. She acted like she was lost. She challenged her brother to find his way home. So we see several things at work here. A nice relationship with the father, which resonated with in her relationship with her brother. The fact that she was lost, but she had confidence. She wasn't afraid of that. She engaged the future. She engaged finding things. She showed that she was curious. So in addition to being a good writer, being creative, having a nice relationship with her family, she showed that she could negotiate her way through life. So this essay was a nice navigation through life here. Okay, I want to bring this to a close with some other things to show you. One is this, the Essay Edge. This is some sources for writing essays. The Princeton Review is another one you can get online and look at these. There are any number of essay writing books you can take a look at. This is probably by a really good lady, Sarah Myers McGinty, the college application essay. I've used that for years and I've shown it to people. Another one on writing the college application essay. It's a pretty good one to take a look at. This is the 50 successful Harvard application essays that I mentioned with Stephanie's essay. And then I found this also recently from the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. They put these little iPod broadcasts that break down, basically do what I'm doing, but they do them a little 3 to 5 minute episodes. You can get these online and put them on your iPod. This is by a guy from Penn, and he wrote, or he delivered this oral essay on listening, or on doing the college essay. So if you can make that out, you can go to that www site and listen to it. And it's short, it's brief, it's balanced, and offers some good ideas here. So, little summary of what we talked about here today. Recognize the role and importance of the college essay, the personal statement. Know what to do, get some help from some people, go to your English teacher. Know what to avoid. Choose the topic wisely. That's probably the most important thing I can tell you here. Respect the importance of writing, and you're going to have to put a lot of work into it. Be aware of the tone. You don't want to be too flip, too cautious, too anything. And you be very, very careful with the sarcastic tone and the humorous tone. Get appropriate help from people, and then spend enough time. So you've got a big job in front of you. Thanks for the sort of the tediousness of seeing this PowerPoint, listening to me talk and write to you. But I think this is a really important thing that you can do. You can prepare for it. You can change things. You can't change your scores. You can't change your GPA, class rank. You can't change your height. You can't change your gender, your family background, and so forth. But you can work on the essay and make it work for you. Looks like we're at the end of another hour episode here with College Prep for You. The two that we have left, the one, either going to do it next week or in 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure on the date yet. It's either May 5th or May the 12th. It's going to be on athletics and recruiting. I'm going to have a college athlete here. I'm going to have a junior of ours who's being recruited for golf, and also a young lady who played tennis, and she's trying to decide amongst a couple of schools back east for her tennis, and I'm going to have her mother here as well. I'm working on getting either the MPC, junior college athletic director, or an athletic director at Cal State Monterey Bay. So we'll have a little panel here. We'll talk about how that can help you, how you can work that into your future, whether you're Division I athlete or Division III athlete. So that's going to be the next show. Then the final show of the year is going to be jumping back to seniors again, letting go and breaking away. The process where parents let their kids go off beginning in the summer, and then they're going to be gone in the fall, and then the students have to break away from the parents and make their own decisions. And there's some behaviors there, some psychology, and also some nuts and bolts about the moving that we want to touch upon. So those will both be in May. So I want to close with our normal farewell here. I want to thank the parents and the students here for spending time and watching us. I invite you to come to our next show. And I want you to remember that it's never too early to start learning about the college process, and it's never too late to get started and actually do some things. This is Dave Miller wishing you all the best of luck in finding the right college for you. You have a good day.